you ever stopped to think that right now, all of us are under the protection of an invisible force that decides the fate of life on Earth? What if I told you that this mysterious shield, capable of saving us from deadly cosmic threats, is under pressure, and that without it our planet would turn into a radioactive desert within a few years? Earth's magnetic field isn't just a distant scientific concept. It's the unsung hero keeping our air breathable, our climate stable, and our technology functional. But what would happen if it suddenly vanished? How would the absence of this barrier affect your daily life, your health, even humanity's future? Let's start with a chilling image. Imagine the night sky, lit not by stars, but by chaotic auroras, covering the entire planet, while killer particles from the sun slice through the atmosphere like knives. This is just one visible effect of a collapsing magnetic field. As you watch this video, cosmic rays and solar winds are being deflected by this protective network, acting as a magnetic shield, an invisible armor generated by Earth's molten core. Without it, ultraviolet radiation would scorch crops, satellites would collapse, and entire species would go extinct in a chain reaction. But here's the point. No one is discussing. This field isn't static. It's changing, weakening in critical regions, and scientists are already sounding the alarm. Why should this matter to you? Think of every device you use, every airplane trip, every meal on your table, all depend on a fragile balance maintained by this field. Now reflect. What would happen to children born into a world where skin cancer becomes an epidemic, where solar storms wipe out global power for months, where nature turns hostile? This isn't science fiction. It's a possible future if we ignore the signs. And while no one knows exactly when the field might collapse, one thing is certain. Changes are already underway, and we need to talk about solutions now. But here's the good news. Understanding the problem is the first step to avoiding the worst. And that's where this video becomes essential. In the next few minutes, you'll not only discover how the magnetic field is tied to your survival, but also learn about technologies being developed to reinforce it, how nations are preparing for the worst-case scenario, and, most importantly, what you can do today to protect yourself even if the enemy is invisible. Brace for revelations that will alter your perception of the planet and humanity's place on it. Because in the end, this isn't a video about science, it's a video about survival. Attention, what follows isn't theory. It's concrete evidence that the magnetic field is transforming, and the impacts are closer than you imagine. Your action now defines your future. Leave your like to access censored information. Subscribe, hit the bell, and receive the final alert before communications go down. The subscribe button is your last chance. Tomorrow may be too late. Have you ever wondered what keeps Earth alive in a universe full of invisible threats? The answer lies beneath our feet, over 5,000 kilometers deep, where a slumbering giant is in constant motion, Earth's core. Picture a sphere of iron and nickel, as hot as the sun's surface, 5,500 degrees Celsius, spinning like a blazing whirlpool. This liquid outer core in constant rotation acts as a colossal dynamo, generating electric currents that spread across the planet and create Earth's magnetic field. This invisible force wraps around Earth like a cocoon, extending tens of thousands of kilometers into space, and it's the sole reason you aren't being fried by gamma rays, ultra-fast protons, and solar winds loaded with death. But how exactly does this shield work? Let's simplify. Think of the magnetic field as an energy armor that deflects lethal particles. When the sun launches its coronal mass ejections, explosions capable of releasing 1 billion tons of plasma toward Earth, the magnetic field acts as an invisible warrior, capturing these particles and redirecting them to the poles. The result? The beautiful northern and southern lights, which are in fact the visible sign of a cosmic battle raging above our heads. But if the magnetic field weakens, these particles wouldn't stay confined to the poles. They'd flood the atmosphere, ionizing the air, burning electrical circuits, and sterilizing entire ecosystems within months. Here's a detail that will blow your mind. The magnetic field isn't a fixed structure. It pulses, fluctuates, and even reverses its polarity over thousands of years. Scientists call this a geomagnetic reversal, and geological records show the last one occurred 780,000 years ago. Now, the latest data reveals something alarming. The field is losing strength 10 times faster than predicted, especially in the region known as the South Atlantic Anomaly, stretching from Brazil to South Africa. In this area, Satellites already report technical failures due to intense radiation, a sign the shield is leaking. If this trend continues, within a few decades, cell phones could stop working, power grids could burn out en masse, and even commercial planes would have to reroute to avoid radiation overdoses in passengers. But why is Earth's core so crucial to this story? The perfect analogy is to imagine the planet as a giant magnet with magnetic north and south poles. These poles aren't static. They dance continuously due to the motion of the liquid outer core. This metallic fluid, as it spins, generates electric currents that in turn produce the magnetic field, a process called the dynamo effect. Without this motion, the field would collapse. And guess what? Recent studies suggest the inner core may be slowing its pace. If this heart of Earth stops pumping magnetic energy, the shield will wither, exposing us to a reality where moderate solar storms could erase modern civilization. You might be thinking, but how does this affect my life? Let's bring it to everyday terms. Every time you use GPS, you're relying on the magnetic field. The satellites providing signal depend on this protection to avoid being fried by solar particles. Even animal migrations, like whales and birds, are guided by Earth's magnetism. Without it, ecosystems would collapse. Crops would be destroyed by unfiltered ultraviolet radiation, and technology would regress decades. And it doesn't stop there. Prolonged exposure to cosmic rays would drastically increase cases of cancer, genetic mutations, and premature aging. It's a domino effect starting in space and hitting your breakfast table. Now the burning question, are we prepared for this? The truth is, as you watch this video, governments and scientists are already racing against time. Bold projects like artificial magnetic shields and real-time monitoring satellites are being developed. But this isn't enough. Survival depends on global awareness, and that's where you come in. The more people understand the gravity of the problem, the greater the pressure for innovative solutions. Before we move to the next part, I want to know, what's your reaction to discovering that even Earth's core has an expiration date? Comment below if you'd already heard of the South Atlantic anomaly, or if you think governments should invest more in magnetic protection. Write Earth Shield or magnetic field to expand this debate. Attention! In the next part, you'll discover how a single solar storm nearly sent us back to the Middle Ages in 2012, and why the next one could be the greatest technological disaster in history. Imagine waking up in a world where the sky is no longer blue but stained blood red and ghost green, with killer auroras covering every continent. A world where your phone becomes a useless brick, hospitals lose power during surgeries, and planes drop like flies poisoned by radiation. This isn't a Marvel movie. It's the realistic scenario of the first month without Earth's magnetic field. And believe me, the worst is yet to come. Let's start with the invisible attack already happening but unseen: galactic cosmic rays. Particles accelerated to nearly the speed of light, coming from black holes and supernovas. Today, the magnetic field deflects 99.9% of these silent killers. Without it, this radiation would penetrate the soil, the walls of your home, and even your DNA. Within 24 hours, radiation levels on the surface would match Chernobyl post-disaster. In a week, it would be like standing at the epicenter of Hiroshima every single day. Skin cancer would become epidemic even in Nordic countries, and the human nervous system would collapse. Crippling migraines, memory failures, and even hallucinations would become the new normal. But human health is just the beginning. Your digital life would die in minutes. Communication satellites, the ones streaming Netflix, GPS, and banking transactions, would fry like popcorn in a cosmic microwave. An average solar storm, currently blocked by the magnetic field, would release an energy charge equivalent to 10 million atomic bombs directly into the ionosphere. Continental power grids would burn out in cascades, plunging entire cities into darkness forever. Imagine the chaos. Without cooling systems, nuclear plants would melt down, releasing radioactive clouds. Without the internet, the global financial system would turn to dust. Without logistics, supermarkets would empty in hours. It's a technological apocalypse, and humanity would regress to a high-tech medieval age, where survivors fight over batteries and bottled water. Now, take a deep breath and consider the cruelest twist. These effects would be global and simultaneous. There would be no safe country. The South Atlantic anomaly, which already interferes with satellites today, would be just a rehearsal. With the total collapse of the magnetic field, even commercial flights would be cancelled. Radiation at cruising altitudes would be 500 times the lethal limit. Pilots and passengers would die mid-air, and the few planes that landed would carry corpses in their seats. Meanwhile, on the surface, migratory animals, from whales to swallows, would spiral into intense, disoriented agitation, crashing into buildings or beaching en masse, their biological compasses rendered useless without magnetism. And here's the detail that will make you look at the sky differently. The air we breathe would begin to vanish. Yes, Earth's atmosphere is partly held by gravity, but the magnetic field acts as a shield against solar erosion. Without it, the solar wind, a constant stream of charged particles, would strip away atmospheric molecules like a breath over ashes. This process already happened on Mars billions of years ago, turning a wet, blue planet into a radioactive desert. On Earth, estimates suggest we'd lose 5% of the atmosphere per decade, enough to make the air unbreathable without equipment in 2 centuries. Plants would die, oceans would evaporate, and atmospheric pressure would drop to Himalayan levels across the planet. You must be wondering, why is no one talking about this? The answer is terrifying, because it's so vast it feels like fiction, but the facts are there. In 2012, a powerful solar storm missed Earth by 9 days. Had it hit, NASA estimates the damage to power grids would have been worse than Hurricane Katrina multiplied by 20. Now multiply that by 1,000, and you'll grasp the impact of a world without a magnetic field. Governments know this. Corporations know this. But strategic silence prevails, because admitting vulnerability would trigger panic and stock market crashes. But all is not lost, and this is where your attention becomes the most powerful weapon. As you watch this video, scientists in countries like Norway and Japan are already testing local magnetic shields to protect entire cities using helium-cooled superconductors. Others propose launching a network of satellites with artificial magnets to create a temporary second magnetic field. Are these solutions expensive? Yes. Complex? Absolutely. But what's the cost of extinction? Before we move to the next part, where I'll reveal how you can prepare for the first signs of collapse using accessible tech and daily changes, I want to hear from you. Comment "Urgent Shield" if you think governments should prioritize magnetic protection projects instead of wars. Tag someone who needs to wake up to this invisible threat. And if you've already felt radiation's effects, like migraines on flights or device failures, describe them in the comments. Let's build history's largest crowdsourced evidence archive. Let's dive deeper into the mystery haunting even the planet's greatest scientists, the possible disappearance of Earth's magnetic field. Have you ever stopped to think that our existence depends on an invisible shield generated by a molten iron core 5,000 kilometers beneath our feet? That's right, curious friend. What keeps this vital system running is an ultra-delicate balance between Earth's liquid outer core and solid inner core, a cosmic dance lasting billions of years that may now be undergoing disturbing changes. Here's a spine-chilling fact. Studies of magnetized rocks reveal that the magnetic field once weakened to the brink of vanishing entirely during the Lachance event, approximately 42,000 years ago. Back then, auroras borealis must have been a terrifying spectacle, visible even at the equator, as cosmic particles bombarded the surface. And what if I told you modern instruments have already detected a drop of nearly 10% in the field's intensity over the past 170 years? It's as if Earth's magnetic heart is showing signs of arrhythmia, and geophysicists are glued to their monitors 24 hours a day trying to crack this enigma. Now hold on to your seat for the most controversial part. What if Earth's core is undergoing a geological short circuit? Recent research published in Nature Geoscience suggests that turbulent magnetic waves in the outer core may be creating zones of anomaly, like the infamous South Atlantic anomaly, where satellites literally take a beating from cosmic radiation. Bold computer models propose these distortions could be the first signs of a full pole reversal, a process taking centuries but one that would utterly transform our relationship with technology. Imagine GPS systems thrown into chaos, animal migrations completely altered, and your grandfather's compass pointing south instead of north. But don't panic yet. Science has fascinating answers and plenty of questions about this phenomenon. Did you know Mars lost its magnetic field around 4 billion years ago, effectively sterilizing its potential for complex life? While the red planet became a radioactive desert, Earth kept its protective shield until now. And here's a cosmic spoiler. Even Jupiter's moon Ganymede has its own magnetic field, generated by a subsurface ocean of salt water. Makes you wonder, could understanding how other celestial bodies handle this internal dynamism hold the key to our own fate? So, what's your personal theory? Do you think we're witnessing the early signs of a major planetary shift, or is this just another natural cycle? Comment below with change if you believe humanity must prepare for these shifts, or cycle if you trust Earth's resilience. And for those who love a shocking fact, researchers at the Paris Institute of Geophysics calculated that if the magnetic field vanished today, it would take at least 700 years for us to feel the worst effects, enough time to develop protective technologies. Now that we understand how the magnetic field could disappear, let's unravel the true scientific nightmare. What would happen to our planet if this invisible shield simply evaporated? Brace yourself for a dark journey, because the consequences would be so catastrophic they'd make the greatest apocalyptic films seem like fairy tales. Imagine a world where the solar wind, that endless stream of deadly particles spat out by the sun, begins eroding our atmosphere like acid on a copper wire. We're talking about cosmic erosion that, according to NASA models, could strip away up to 30% of the ozone layer in less than 10 years. The result? A bath of ultraviolet radiation so intense it would burn crops in hours and turn a simple day at the beach into an immediate skin cancer risk. But the tragedy doesn't stop at the surface. Without the magnetic field to deflect charged particles, our ionosphere, that atmospheric layer critical for global communications, would begin to disintegrate. Satellites would collapse like flies in an electric spiderweb, leaving GPS systems, weather forecasts, and even global financial transactions in pandemonium. A study by the Massachusetts Institute of Technology calculated economic losses would exceed $70 trillion in the first 5 years. And here's a morbid twist. The northern lights, those enchanting dancing lights, would become a permanent global spectacle, a glowing sign that we're literally being roasted alive under a cosmic furnace. Let's talk real life. In the 1980s, when the ozone layer hole terrified the world, it took a global effort to ban CFCs. Now multiply that by 1,000. Entire ecosystems would collapse in chains. Bees, which rely on Earth's magnetism to navigate, would vanish within weeks, leading to the extinction of 30% of the plants they pollinate. The oceans, already struggling, would see plankton, the base of the marine food chain, fried by radiation, triggering a domino effect up to apex predators. And this isn't fiction. Paleontologists found evidence that the last magnetic reversal, 780,000 years ago, coincided with the abrupt disappearance of 15 species of giant mammals. Now, the historical kicker, the Permian-Triassic extinction event, 250 million years ago, killed 96% of marine life. And guess what? Geologists found rock layers from that time with chaotic magnetic signatures. Was this a rehearsal for the apocalypse we might face? The cruel irony is that while Mars lost its atmosphere over millions of years, modern Earth, with its technological dependence, would collapse in decades. Entire cities would become uninhabitable without radiation protection, agriculture would fail, and simply breathing outdoors would require special suits. And here's the final warning. Scientists at the Paris Observatory detected that the South Atlantic anomaly, the zone where the magnetic field is already 50% weaker, is expanding at a rate of 20 kilometers per hour. If this pace continues, in 200 years it will cover the entire southern hemisphere. This gives us less time than it took to build the Egyptian pyramids to develop survival technologies. The burning question: are you willing to bet humanity's future on a race against the cosmic clock? Before you say this is exaggerated, let me poke your curiosity. Did you know certain underground bacteria can survive radiation levels 1,000 times higher than humans? Could the intelligent life of the future be subterranean? Comment "smart life" if you'd start building a bunker now, or "solution" if you believe humanity will find a creative answer. Now that we've explored the abyss of consequences, it's time to light the torch of hope. Because yes, friend on the other side of the screen, there's still light at the end of this tunnel. Did you know the same scientists mapping the field's weakening are already working on solutions straight out of sci-fi movies? Humanity's genius is about to take center stage to write the next chapter of this cosmic saga. Imagine a world where satellites equipped with superconductors create an artificial magnetic shield around the planet, an idea so bold the European Space Agency has already invested 50 million euros in preliminary prototypes. These orbital guardians, using ionized plasma tech, could deflect solar particles like an army of medieval knights protecting a castle, but with quantum physics instead of swords. But the skies aren't the only source of answers. Here on the surface, geophysicists at the Tokyo Institute of Technology discovered that injecting electrical currents into strategic zones of Earth's mantle could, in theory, recharge the core's natural dynamo. It's like giving a cardiac shock to Earth's magnetic heart. Meanwhile, deep in Switzerland, the Large Hadron Collider, the same machine that discovered the Higgs boson, is being adapted to simulate Earth's core conditions, letting scientists test magnetic reinforcement theories in controlled environments. And here's a mind-blowing fact. In 2023, an MIT team created a stable, small-scale magnetic field using only graphene and pressurized water, a breakthrough that could unlock portable radiation shielding tech. Now let's talk practical survival. Have you heard of the bubble cities SpaceX proposed for Mars? Those concepts are being adapted for our own planet. Visionary architects are designing underground habitats with walls lined with molten basalt, a material that blocks radiation as effectively as 3 meters of lead. Meanwhile, in agriculture, geneticists are racing against time to engineer radiation-resistant crops by crossbreeding modern species with ancient varieties that survived eras of intense solar activity. Imagine a future where your salad contains DNA from plants that witnessed dinosaurs go extinct. But here's the key point. No technology will save humanity without global awareness. Remember when the world united to ban CFCs and heal the ozone layer? We need an effort 10 times greater. Every share of this video, every social media debate, every push for policy matters. Scientists calculate that if we cut CO2 emissions by 60% by 2050, we'll buy precious time to develop magnetic protection tech. And you thinking you're too small to make a difference? Did you know a single viral post on this topic can reach more people than all scientific papers published in a year? Now, I want your opinion in the comments. Write techno if you trust artificial magnetic shields, evolution if you bet on radical biological adaptation, or union if you believe only a global pact will save us. And so we reach the critical moment where every second counts and every choice weighs heavier than ever on the cosmic scale. The reality we've uncovered together is harsh, but not final. Yes, our magnetic shield is weakening. Yes, the threats are real. But here's the secret the powerful don't want you to know. We still hold the power to rewrite this fate. As you watch this message, in Arctic underground labs to Australian deserts, brilliant minds are decoding geological secrets hidden in volcanic rocks and ancient iron particles. They've discovered Earth's core holds a magnetic memory capable of guiding us, like a beacon in the dark. But we need you to amplify this signal. Here's the raw truth. No bunker is strong enough, no miracle tech can save a divided humanity. The last magnetic reversal left a warning etched in fossil DNA. Species that cooperated survived, those that competed turned to radioactive dust. And as you reflect on this, a fleet of satellites from the Earth's Magnetic Shield Initiative is already in orbit, testing electromagnetic pulses that could, perhaps, reboot the planetary dynamo. But even these modern heroes need fuel. Your awareness, your voice, your click sharing this video. And now the hook that will cling to your mind like a magnetic riddle. What lies behind the field's disappearance is just the tip of the cosmic iceberg. Confidential sources reveal the International Solar Observatory detected an anomaly 500 times larger than Earth approaching our solar system, and it's emitting pulses that directly interfere with our core. Is it a herald of destruction or the key to salvation? This is your final alert. Your choice at this very second defines the future. Share with those brave enough to face the invisible. This content may vanish at any moment. Subscribe and turn on notifications now. What comes next isn't just a video. It's a revelation that will erase everything you thought you knew about planetary survival. Something is moving in the depths. Something that will make volcanoes look like child's play. Earth's magnetic pulse is already agonizing. Every second is a breath from the shield we have left. Will you hear the tick-tock of extinction? Or will your name be the last struck from history's list? I'll see you in the next video.